Being a slave sucks. Officially, we are a client race, but in reality, we were thoroughly and completely conquered and enslaved. Our kind is called Twans. We are, or more accurately were, a young race of peaceful beings focused on science, commerce, and arts. When we developed FTL travel, we met two other sentient races relatively close to us, and we were so happy we were not alone in the universe. Our technology was a little bit more advanced, so we were the ones that developed the translators. These tools really strengthened the relations with our neighbors, and our 3 planets formed the core of what we later named the United Races Federation. As our FTL capabilities became more and more advanced, we explored further and further. We met some other races, and we were always happy to include them into our federation. Commerce flourished, science advanced, and peace endured. Sure, there were some conflicts here and there, but nothing serious. All disputes were solved diplomatically by the Federation Council. After all, the universe, in its infinity, was big enough for everyone. And then, we were discovered by the slth Empire, a race of hunters, conquerors, and meat-eaters. They did not have an economy based on commerce, or science, or production. No. They conquered anyone they met, and then extracted tribute. We tried diplomacy, but our requests for peace were scorned. We tried to defend, but our military was totally unprepared for the brutality of the slth. In less than a year, all 12 races of the Federation had been forced to unconditionally surrender. Now, our planet's most precious resources are sent steadily towards our masters. They took and adapted all useful technology. All of our factories are now producing goods that will end up in their grabby paws. Thousands of people just disappear every year, and there were suspicions that the slth were kidnapping them, ship them back to their worlds, and butcher them. Our most brilliant minds end up working for the slth in what is basically slavery. And this is how we come to my part in this story. I am a diplomat and a translator on the Teran, slth flagship of the Imperial Third Army. I put diplomat between quotation marks because there's no actual diplomacy involved when it comes to the slth. My job is to calibrate the translator for each new race they find so they can transmit their threats and their requests for unconditional surrender. Then, I just shrink away in a corner of the bridge and watch the massacre that follows. I am needed again at the end to make sure the translator properly transmits all the slth instructions and demands to the newly conquered species. I am also required to do a lot of reports on the new species, mainly of their resources, capabilities, observable advanced technology that the slth can steal, adapt, and use. This is the part of my job that I hate the most. All slth flagships used a Tuan, one of my people, as translators, simply because the devices are Tuan made, and we can calibrate them, maintain, and repair them. Because we do this for the slth, all the other races hate us. But we don't do this by choice. The slth are expert slavers. They know exactly how to break anyone into submission. We either do what we are told, or a single command is sent back to our planet, and our families disappear, and we all suspect that means they are eaten. Since the conquering of our federation, I have witnessed the slth conquering 6 more new races. Each time it was more or less the same. The slth discover a race. They scout until they know how much the race has expanded. They bring overwhelming force. They conquer, and then they bleed dry their newest victim. My secret hope was that someday, the slth will meet someone tougher than them. Someone that would defeat them and allow all of us to rebel, to break free. But, in almost 20 years of slavery, my hopes had shriveled away to little more than nothing. That is until the fleet I was stationed on received orders to head with all speed to some faraway coordinates to help the Imperial First Army with the conquering of a new species, the Terans. At first I thought nothing of it, but then it dawned on me. We were required to help, meaning that the Imperial First Army couldn't conquer this species by itself. This was a very big deal. No other conquest I was aware of had ever needed more than one Imperial Army. As we were headed for the received coordinates, I started to eavesdrop to the rumors circulating amongst the slth crew. And my hopes rekindled. These Terans seemed truly formidable. Apparently they had dozens of planets under their control, and they had managed to firmly expel the First Army from their territory. As we approached the Teran territory, more information was uploaded into our computers, and I had already received orders to calibrate our translator for the Teran language. It was then that I found out that the Imperial First Army's flagship had been destroyed. hence the need for me to be the translator. As I worked on my machine, I couldn't believe my ears. The slth were planning to make peace with the Terrans. Sure, they were only planning to keep peace until they would gather overwhelming forces or find some technological advantage. But, as far as I could tell right now, they were almost afraid of the Terrans. Finally, our fleet arrived at the border with the Terrans. The remains of the Imperial First Army joined us, as well as the remains of the Second Army. Apparently, the Second Army had boldly tried to accomplish what the First Army couldn't, and was also pushed back, in tatters. Facing the slth ships were thousands of metal-gray Teran ships, bristling with turrets and gun ports, a huge armada. The ships were in various sizes, but in general, they looked bigger and sturdier than the bladed design of the slth ones. I was in awe, staring mouth agape through the viewport at the majestic view in front of us. The growl of the captain startled me from my reverie. "Tuan, when will the translator machine be ready? I need more Teran speech samples, Master," I stammered. "The machine needs more information about their behavior, about the way they communicate. Otherwise, we will only be able to transmit basic words like surrender, destroy, war." "No," stopped me the slth captain, in somewhat a worried tone. "We need to properly transmit our willingness to cease fire, to peace." The captain spoke the words with a grimace, like they left a sour taste in his mouth. "You will have access to all information we gathered about these Terrans. We hacked into one of their data networks, so you will have all the speech samples you require. Your machine will be ready in 20 hours. I don't need to tell you what happens if you fail to be ready, do I?" "No, Master. The machine will be ready." I bowed and hurried to my console. I spent the entire 20 hours in fascination, browsing the information downloaded from Teran Network. The translation machine was calibrated in the first hour, but I kept that fact to myself as I studied everything I could about these people. Because now I was sure of one thing. Right now and here, the Terrans were stronger than the slth. A ceasefire would only allow the slth to find a way to defeat them in time. It was my duty as the diplomat to prevent a diplomatic solution to this conflict. Our diplomatic delegation was comprised of the captain, his second-in-command, 2 shock troopers, and myself, dragging the translator unit. We had to meet on a Teran ship, as they absolutely refused to trust us. This fact was made even more clear when all weapons were removed from the 4 slth members of the delegation. As one of the Teran soldiers was patting me for concealed weapons, I got a really close look at them. They were in different sizes, with clear sexual dimorphism, but in general, they were twice the size of a Tuan or a slth hunter. Even the slth shock troopers, who were doing their best to bristle up and look more imposing, seemed rather small compared to these muscled giants. The soldiers that disarmed us were equipped with what looked like half their body weight in gear. Their rigorous padding for weapons, while very professionally done, probably left me bruised in several places, and I couldn't be happier, because the slth seemed as impressed with the Terrans as I was. We were led into a meeting room to meet with their delegation, the admiral of the fleet that was currently facing us, 2 captains, 1 male, 1 female from 2 of their ships, and a diplomat with a strange dark skin. As the 2 parties faced each other, I scrambled to bring the translator in the middle, and then handed an earpiece to each of them. When it was all set, the Teran diplomat broke the silence. "Hello, I am sorry, but we will have to wait just a couple more minutes before starting these peace talks. The Lady Governor of the planet Pandana insisted she would participate, and she is already on her way." "Why should we wait for some governor?" growled the slth captain. "We command the warships. This can be settled between us." "Well, because the planet Pandana is the planet your forces had landed on before the fleet arrived, because she lost a lot of civilians to that unprovoked attack, and frankly because I am afraid to say no to her," answered the diplomat, with a grin at the end. "Ah, seems she is already here," he said, hearing some booming footsteps somewhere behind a double door to the right. Said doors suddenly slammed open, and a huge, scowling Teran woman barged inside. Hungry eyes locked on the slth delegation. Her presence filled the room. She wasn't just really tall, she was big all around. Thick and muscled legs that stretched the material of her uniform. Long, strong arms with palms bigger than my entire head. a wild mane of pitch-black hair. And you know how I instantly recognize her as female. Her chest entered the room a full second before she did, and all the slanath in the room were positively drooling. "Look at all that meat," the second-in-command said with a glossy look. I decided right then and there that she was perfect. The Lady Governor had reached us by now and was looming over everyone. "These are the fuckers in command?" she growled. Her growl was worthy of a veteran pack leader. "What did that one say to me?" she demanded, pointing a log of a finger at the second-in-command. I snapped into motion and hurried to bring her an earpiece. She picked it up and put it in her ear. As soon as she fixed it, I was more than happy to answer her question. "The second-in-command was just admiring how much meat you possess." She looked at me in disbelief, then turned towards the second-in-command. "What?" she asked menacingly, dragging the word, as to give him time to explain himself. A thick vein was pulsating on her forehead, but the second-in-command was too stupid, or maybe too hungry. I don't know exactly how his mind worked at that point, but he was not very inspired in his answer. He mumbled and gestured towards her, spit drooling from his maw. "I mean, look at all this blubber." The huge woman managed to take a single step towards the slanath before the Teran diplomat jumped in her way, with arms extended, stopping her. "Please, Lady Governor, this is a diplomatic meeting." "Out of my way, Thomas. That fucker just called me a piece of meat. And fat." While the diplomat was trying to placate the Lady Governor, I leaned towards the drooling second-in-command and whispered in his ear. He grinned. "Turn around, woman. I want to see how big you really are." The human admiral and the two captains audibly sighed at this, defeated, while the Lady Governor took 2 more steps towards the slanath delegation. The Teran diplomat was clinging to her like a baby Turek to his mother. He was carried along, powerless against her advance. The woman's left arm snaked forward with surprising speed and grabbed the second-in-command by the neck. She lifted him with ease and brought his snout in front of her face. "What did you say?" She said the words slowly, without opening her jaws. "Just sounds between gritting teeth." Struggling to breathe, the idiot managed a ragged answer. "Your back side must be huge." Hearing this, the Teran diplomat carefully let go of his grip and scuttled back, towards the admiral and the captains. The Lady Governor extended her left arm a bit, with the slanath still dangling in her grip at the end of it, and slowly lifted her other arm up in the air. And then there was a loud sound, like when you drop something flat and really heavy on an empty room floor. She slapped him. She slapped him so hard, it knocked him unconscious. One of the most dangerous predators I have ever seen, scourge of my galaxy, was knocked out cold with one single slap. She opened her left palm and let him fall on the floor like a bundle of rags. His jaw was hanging, but not exactly anatomically correct. The entire slanath party started to growl menacingly and to bristle up. The Teran woman gave zero indications of giving a shit and was facing the remaining 3 slanath with an impressive scowl and fists planted on her hips. I hurried next to the captain and started to frantically whisper, "Master, if we want peace, you need to defuse the situation. Tell her, firmly, to calm down, and assert dominance by calling her something demeaning, like a female canine." The captain straightened himself, bravely stepped between his pack and the woman, and growled at her, "Calm down, bitch!